Welcome to this week's episode of the Lido Loop. I'm your host, Jack McCraw. With me, as always, my good friend, Jesse Barboza. How we doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Jack?
Doing good, doing good. What's on the show today, Jesse?
So, two cruise lines, apparently, they raised their gratuities. And apparently, there's a woman who has sold her house and decided to live on a cruise ship full time. And they finally arrested the killer of Anna Kippner.
That and Disney has announced their new CEO going forward. Universal has opened a brand new attraction based on a certain famous artist. And Six Flags announces a new season pass that kind of looks like football divisions. That and Jesse and I are going to break down what it's like to cruise out of Galveston. So stay tuned for that and much more on this week's episode of The Lido Loop. Before we get talking about cruising out of Galveston, we're going to talk about the latest and greatest in the cruise world. And Jesse, I hear there are two cruise lines that are raising gratuity prices on board their ships. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so let's start off with Carnival. So, Carnival now is going to be raising the prices by $1 from $16 to $17 per person. And with suites, it's going to be $18 to $19 now.
Just to clarify, that's per day, per guest, right?
Yes, per day, per guest. Doesn't matter what age you are, they're still going to charge it. So that means on a 7-day cruise, for each person, that's going to raise it $7. So for 4 people, it'd be $28 it will raise it for.
Is there another reason that they raise prices other than greed?
Well, yeah, actually, Carnival and Margaritaville, they're both not going to the actual cruise line itself, but actually the staff, which includes the room attendants and all the workers that work in the kitchen and stuff like that.
That does make sense, especially considering people can remove their gratuities, and people sometimes don't even pay the gratuities. So at least there's a little bit of something that they can give back to their staff.
Yeah, well, so actually, Carnival, you may be able to take your gratuities off, but Margaritaville, you can't. Speaking of Margaritaville, they are actually the highest price gratuities. They're now going to be $22 per person per day. So, and the suites are going to be $25 per person today. So, Jack, do you think Margaritaville has enough entertainment and things to do on board that will compete with $22 a day?
You know what it does remind me of, and I'm going to answer that question here in a sec, but it reminds me of buying a Spirit flight where you get the base fare because it's so cheap, and that's how Margaritaville lures you in. Hey, come cruise with us for $300 for a 3-day cruise. But then they tack on these other fees. To answer the question of is there enough to do to justify that, to be honest, I'm not really sure because, from everything I've seen, they have everything that you would have on a normal cruise ship. They have bars, they have, a club, and they have, dining. But to justify paying that much more in gratuities versus doing a Carnival, and then the prices become a lot more marginal, and I'd rather go on a Carnival ship than a Margaritaville, so to be honest, no, I don't think that extra gratuity price is worth going on a Margaritaville cruise.
Yeah, and I can actually, here I got a chart showing all the prices of everything. So Carnival, right now it's still $16, but starting April of this year, it will be $17. And Royal Caribbean is at $18.50. Norwegian's at $20. Princess Cruises at $17. Celebrity $18. Holland's at $17. Disney Cruise Line, which is $16, which is kind of low, honestly. MSC's at $16. Virgin is $20 to $22. Virgin's kind of weird because if you prepay the gratuities, it's only $20. And if you wait till pay it on board, it's $22. And then, of course, Margaritaville, $22.
Yeah, it would be weird that Margaritaville has the highest amount of gratuity, but I think they're still going to have people come in and sell just because they're offering, a $300 a person for a 3-day cruise. So that's how they'll get you, and then eventually they'll just stick you with the gratuities, and that's probably how they're making a lot of their money.
Yeah, and so I got another question to ask you, Jack. If you can't take it off, which I 100% don't believe that anyone should be able to take their gratuities off, but do you feel like it should be, if it's a gratuity, you should be able to take it off?
If you have a negative experience and you can prove it, yes. Let's say you were treated unfairly by a staff member, which, God forbid that happens, or you had a very negative experience on the cruise ship, I think that there should be an option of take gratuity off, especially if it was staff based. If you just don't want to pay it and then make them an excuse and complain about it, then no, that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, honestly, I think that everyone should keep it on and 100% because the workers they're the most fantastic workers you've ever seen. They work really hard keeping your rooms clean and keeping you fed. But I feel like honestly, cruise lines should just include it in the price across the board. Then we won't have to worry about people taking it off or trying to not pay it.
Yeah, because these workers live on these tips. Your housekeepers, these restaurant, employees, the bartenders, that's how they make most of their money because they probably don't get paid a whole lot of money on Carnival just based on their pay alone. These tips is what makes it worth their jobs and worth to have these jobs.
So yeah, I definitely agree. They definitely deserve to keep their tips. But anyways, the next topic I want to talk about is would you ever sell your house, Jack, and live on a cruise ship?
Well, considering I rent, no. But if I was a homeowner, I would definitely sell my house because that does sound like a whole lot of fun. Maybe later on in life, when I'm closer to retirement, but I imagine selling your house in this market right now is you're definitely going to get a good amount of money, but living on a cruise ship could be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, so that's exactly what a woman in her 60s did. She was suffering from a bunch of debt and she decided that she really wanted to travel but never did throughout her life. So she decided to sell her house and then live and work on a cruise ship. To me, I think that honestly that sounds entertaining, especially considering like the people that live on the cruise ship, they really have no bills to pay. So all the money they get is just to do whatever they want to do with it.
Another thing to note is that your food is completely paid for, so you're never going to miss a meal, and you can go spend thousands of dollars on these, month-long cruises and whatnot, but you are going to get pretty good value, so it could be comparable to actually, paying rent, utilities, taxes, homeowner fees, etc. So in the end, it might not be a bad idea if you're, let's say older in life and don't want to have to deal with property taxes or, any kind of like keeping up with a home anymore. Living on a cruise ship is not a terrible idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely heard the stories of in the past where people have said that it was actually cheaper living on a cruise ship than it was to live at home in a senior living facility.
And hey, they have free medical too. You can just go to the nurse's clinic whenever you're ready. But we do have to transition to a more serious topic. And just I hear that Anna Kippner's killer has been arrested. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's really not too much more information we can tell, but apparently the person that they think killed Anna Kippner, which is her stepbrother, which was a 16-year-old teenager, was arrested. So there's really not a lot of information because he's a underage child. But if I ever do hear any more about it, we will definitely let you know.
Yeah, I wonder why it took them so long. Maybe they're just trying to build up evidence in order to arrest him to potentially put him on trial for the murder of Anna Kippner. And, as always, thoughts and prayers are still with her and her family right now. And, hopefully this case does get resolved soon and we get an answer. So switching over to theme park news, Disney has announced their new CEO is Josh D'Amaro. And Josh D'Amaro was the chairman of Disney Experiences since 2020. And he was handpicked by Bob Iger and the Walt Disney Company to effectively become the new CEO on March 16th of this year. So D'Amaro has had 27 years of work experience with Disney, and he's overseen stuff like Toy Story Land expansion, Galaxy's Edge expansion, Hollywood Studios, and the building of Tron, and Epcot's expansion. So he definitely has his hand in the cookie jar as far as the parks experiences go. And Disney has been wanting to get a new CEO since Bob Iger came back in what was a disaster of Bob Chapek's tenure as Disney CEO for those 2 years. So it seems like he's the right fit, and potentially Disney could grow further from this.
So, Jack, I got a question to ask you. What do you think's going to change with this new CEO?
I think there will be a heavy emphasis on park improvements, especially because that's where he came from, was the parks division. So just at the last D23 alone, they've already announced expansions for Hollywood Studios, 2 expansion parts of Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom's finally getting a new expansion, and then they're refurbishing Epcot. They're already announced that they're building a Disney park in, Abu Dhabi. So they're already expanding to another international park. So I think parks will be a heavy emphasis. And also, I think that they want to continue to have success in their film division like they did this year with Avatar, Fire and Ash, and Zootopia 2, which both made over $1 billion.
Do you think that they're going to do anything in the cruise line industry?
So yes, they have announced at their last D23 that they eventually want to double their amount of ships because they already have 7 ships that they operate, and the Disney Adventure is going to come out in March of 2026. So they eventually want to add 4 more ships by the year 2031. So yes, there's going to be a heavy emphasis on theme park growth, cruise growth, and of course, movie growth, and potentially even television growth. So yes, he wants to build the company in all aspects.
So, Jack, switching over to Universal, so what do you think about this new Japanese coaster that's opening?
So yes, if you haven't heard, in Universal Japan, there is a roller coaster themed to Zedd. So it's an overlay, and there's flashing lights. It almost looks like a Space Mountain, but you're at a rave. There's flashing lights and Zedd's music's playing. And Zedd, for those of you that don't know, is a DJ, and he has hits like Clarity and Beautiful Now, Break Free with Ariana Grande, which you can hear in the roller coaster. And of course, there's videos of Zedd narrating, says, "Welcome to my coaster." It's a really cool experience, and I think you should all check it out on YouTube. Just type in Zedd roller coaster Universal, and I think that would be a good idea to bring here to America. Can you think of an artist that you would want to have themed to a roller coaster?
Honestly, for me, it'd be like Linkin Park or Nickelback or something like that. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we need the Divorced Dad Rock roller coaster. I mean, it almost seems like they're copying the idea of what happened at the Rip Ride Rockit at Universal Studios, but only to Zedd. Another good example would be the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster Cosmic Rewind at Epcot, because there's a bunch of different 80s songs that, are played randomly and they fit throughout the ride. So I think that this could be a new trend of music-based roller coasters coming to American parks. And I think, a Nickelback roller coaster with Burn It to the Ground playing, that would be an awesome. Universal, you're listening, do that for us.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Do you think that there's going to be like any licensing issue for long term?
Potentially. I feel like that does get ironed out because Zedd's heavy involvement in this ride probably gave them the green light. I think that is a reason why Universal no longer has Rip Ride Rockit, is because there were so many songs they need to pay licensing fees for. And, what happened with Rock and Roller Coaster at Hollywood Studios, Disney just didn't want to pay Aerosmith the licensing anymore. So now that's why it's being rethemed to the Muppets, which will happen in the next few weeks. Rock and Roller Coaster will be closing, guys. So if you want to get your last rides in, now's the time.
So switching topics, how about Six Flags? What's going on with their season passes?
So if you think of it from a sports perspective, in the NFL, there's 4 divisions for every conference. Well, essentially, Six Flags is now doing the same thing with its Gold Pass, where there's 4 different regions of their Gold Pass. So there's the Texas region, which of course we're in, Midwest region, West region, and East region. And what you can do with the Gold Pass, which is the standard one, is you get access to all the parks in that region. So for example, here in Texas, we would have access to Six Flags Fiesta Texas and Hurricane Harbor, Six Flags Over Texas and Hurricane Harbor in Arlington, Hurricane Harbor Splashdown here in in Houston. And then we have access to both Schlitterbahn parks in New Braunfels and Galveston. And then you could also go to Frontier City in Oklahoma City and their water park as well.
So, Jack, what do you think about Six Flags always changing their pass every year?
I think it has a little bit to do with them finally getting all the Cedar Fair parks in there as well, and then kind of combining everything. Because in the past, you could buy even the cheapest Six Flags season pass and go to any Six Flags parks you wanted. You and I did that, for example, when we went to Six Flags America a couple years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how bad that park was, Six Flags America, and I know it's shut down now, but it was nice that we could go to any park with our pass, which that was really cool.
Yeah, and I've been to Six Flags Over Georgia a couple years back, and I had the regular Six Flags pass that you got at Fiesta Texas. So if you want to go to other Six Flags / Cedar Fair parks around the country, you would have to upgrade to the Passport Pass, which, of course is more money, but at least with the Gold Pass, for some of us that live here in Texas, you can go to any of the Texas parks. If you live on the West Coast, every single California park and one Arizona water park is covered in the California one. And then the Midwest, I think, has the best options because you can go to both Cedar Point, Kings Island, Valley Fair, Michigan's Adventure, all for one, and Six Flags Great America in Illinois. So I think that's the best one. And then, of course, the East Coast one, you do have Six Flags Great Adventure over Georgia and many, many others that you can go to as well.
So, Jack, is there options so that you can visit all the parks?
Yes. So it's with the Passport Pass. So the base season pass is between $70 to $115 a season per person. That's your typical one-time non-membership fee. If you want to add a Passport Pass to that, it could be potentially between $200 to $400, just depending on the status of your season pass. So with the gold membership, it'd probably be an additional $200, but it'd be worth it if you were, let's say, going on a road trip where you live in Texas, but you want to go visit Cedar Point and Kings Island. You just pay extra $200 and you can go as many times as you would like. I think that's the only part of me that thinks it would be worth it if you were going to multiple parks out of state.
I feel like they should offer, even if you don't have the passport, they should be able to offer like a discount for at least holding a membership with Six Flags.
Yeah, you would think. I think that they're essentially still trying this out. And I think eventually that's what they're going to want to go to is, hey, you pay one fee and you can go to all parks like it used to be. So like with us, we can go to Six Flags, Fiesta Texas, over Texas, and both Schlitterbahn parks, even the one in Galveston, which is a good way to transition to cruising out of Galveston. So Jesse, what are some of your impressions about cruising out of Galveston, and what are some tips that you can give our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people don't realize that Galveston, there's actually, if you're flying into Galveston, you really don't fly into Galveston, actually. It's more Houston. So there's two airports. You're either going to go Hobby or IAH, which is George Bush Intercontinental.
Yeah, and if you are trying to be closer to Galveston, flying into Hobby would be more ideal. Even though only Southwest is really the only airport that goes into Hobby, it is the closer airport, with every other airline essentially going into Bush. And with IAH, aka Bush Intercontinental Airport, it's about 45 minutes from that airport to Galveston, and Hobby, which is in the south part of Houston, is only about 30-minute drive.
Yeah, so there's many different ways you can travel to the port. You can go Uber or Lyft, but there's also many other car rentals if you want to spend more time on the island.
Yeah, and speaking of car rentals, I'm frequently, when I go to someplace like Las Vegas or Orlando, I use companies like Fox or like New. Those are the cheap, hey, I just need a car for the weekend. I don't have to worry really about pricing. Those are some of the better options. Of course, here in Houston, we have Budget, which is essentially a cheaper way to get a rental car as well. And some of the other ones do include, we do have Fox here as well, Economy. Those would be your bottom of the barrel, like, hey, I just need a rental car. Of course, we do have Hertz and Enterprise if you do want to pay a little bit more. But if you're trying to just get a car for a weekend cruise or a week-long cruise, you're still going to have to pay to park. And, getting from the airport to Galveston, unless there's something else you want to do in Houston, it'd probably be better just to Uber from the airport to Galveston.
So if you're on a road trip, Jack, what's the number one place you stop at?
Oh, it's definitely Buc-ees. And there is a Buc-ees on the way from both Bush and Hobby. You take I-45 south, and it's maybe like 10 miles before you actually get to Galveston. There is a giant Buc-ees. It was one of the bigger Buc-ees that was built at the time, and it's all, you can spend hours there. You'll get lost in the beaver nuggets and the barbecue sauce there.
So for the people who don't know, what is Buc-ees, Jack?
Buc-ees is a gas station, but it's not just a gas station. It is a gas station with a giant beaver logo. To my fellow Texas residents, everyone has stopped at Buc-ees at least once on any kind of road trip. And with the Buc-ees being essentially 10 miles away from Galveston, it is a giant gas station. And listen to this, they have 52 pumps and 30 cash registers and 41 toilets. They have ample parking for 701 cars or trucks. And there's also the 120 plus pump mega locations throughout the rest of the country. But at this particular location, 52 pumps, that's a That's a lot of pumps.
Yeah, you may think that's a lot of pumps. I have seen multiple times where every single pump was filled up, and there would be a second car behind them waiting to fill up with gas.
Well, why else would you stop anywhere else? I mean, Buc-ee's is essentially a mall, but a gas station. Because I'm gonna, ruffle a lot of feathers here. Buc-ee's has some great barbecue, especially okay. It's maybe a step up of regular barbecue, but when you're driving all day and you just want a brisket sandwich, Buc-ee's will fill that craving. And of course, they have their own merchandise. They have entire areas of the gas station that sell Buc-ee shirt. If anyone has ever been to Texas, they have seen someone in a Buc-ee shirt. But going back to Galveston, Jesse, what are some of the best places that you can stay in Galveston if you have a cruise the next day?
So yeah, there's definitely many options depending on your budget, but some of the best places to stay is Harbor House, the Tremont House, and I know a lot of people might not like this, but the Grand Galvez, which is this hotel was built in 1911. But Jack, what is your problem with this place?
It's haunted. There are ghosts there. If you watch any kind of ghost adventures or any kind of ghost show, they have featured the Hotel Galvez there. So if you're into that, be my guest, stay at the Hotel Galvez. You will not catch me staying at Hotel Galvez.
Well, though that is a very expensive hotel. Honestly, probably the best place to actually view ships, if you want to view ships coming in, is the Harbor House, because it's literally walking distance to pier, and you can literally see the ships coming into the harbor.
Do they let you keep your car there, or would you still have to move your car to a different parking lot?
So they do offer parking, so you can park there and then cruise at the same time. So it's like a all-in-one fee. But Harbor House is going to be looking at close to $300 a night. But when it includes parking, it's not that bad.
So what if you want to try to save a little bit of money? Are there any other good options as far as that goes in Galveston?
Yeah, so there's definitely plenty of options that are under $100 a night, like Holiday Inn, which is right on the seawall, Doubletree, which is right on the seawall, and Sleep Inn. I would not recommend these other ones like Eco Lodge or Wyndham, because I actually stayed at Wyndham, and I ain't gonna lie, they had to give us a second room because the shower wasn't working.
That reminds me when I stayed at the Super 8 a couple years back. I just got the cheapest hotel in Galveston I could. I mean, it's a Super 8, so you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I mean, to me personally, I don't really care what hotel, but there's one thing that I do ask for in a hotel. What is that, Jack?
Are there Texas-shaped waffles?
Yeah, I don't care if it's Florida, we're in Florida, New York, Baltimore, Washington. The only thing I ask is if there would be Texas-shaped waffles.
Why don't other states have their own shaped waffles? When I went to California, I would like a California-shaped waffle, but apparently that's not doable. You only find that in Texas.
I mean, like, how does like Hawaii do it?
You just have little, waffle crumbs here and there. Sort of transitioning over to things to do. Jesse, what are some of your favorite things to do in Galveston? Let's say if you have a free day or, you have a day that you're waiting to go on that cruise ship.
Yeah, absolutely. So we highly recommend y'all fly in the day before, so you got kind of an extra day of just hanging out, because you never know if your flight gets canceled or whatever. But there's many things to do right on the seawall. Some of it's even walking distance from your hotel. So my favorite things are stuff like Kima Boardwalk. Jack, you've been there many times, haven't you?
They do. They have the best roller coaster in the city of Houston in the Boardwalk Bullet.
And there's other places like Pleasure Pier. There's beach. Most popular beach is probably Stewart Beach. That's the most biggest public beach. Yeah, you may not like how the water looks and all that, but it's still a beach.
Just don't go in the water.
There's plenty of stuff like the Strand. Like right now, actually, Mardi Gras is going on in Galveston, so it would be a kind of a bad time to cruise because it's definitely packed down there in Galveston right now.
Yeah, I would imagine that if there's some sort of like intersecting wires between Mardi Gras and cruising, the hotels are going to be exorbitantly expensive and you wouldn't be able to do a lot. I mean, we're nowhere near as popular as New Orleans is for Mardi Gras, but it is still a pretty big event in Galveston.
Yeah, definitely. If you're cruising out of Galveston, look at Galveston website to see if there's an event going on, because that's definitely going to determine if you're going to stay at like a hotel that's outside of Galveston or you're going to stay inside of Galveston.
One thing I wanted to note was that during the summer months, that's usually when Galveston is the busiest with tourists going there for the beaches and doing other things. But so some of the best times to probably cruise out of Galveston would be, I would say, fall and winter. Would you say so too, Jesse?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we went there, we just of course got off MSC Seascape last week, and it was dead downtown. There was no one driving downtown. It was completely dead. But it was definitely like a ghost town, but I would definitely say it was definitely the best time.
Two things that we did kind of forget to mention was that you can go to Moody Gardens, which is a really beautiful botanical garden, and they have the shape of three pyramids. There's a science pyramid, nature pyramid, and aquarium pyramid, and it's a little pricier, but if you have kids that love animals and especially marine animals, that's definitely worth it. And then, of course, if you already have a Six Flags pass and you have the passport, you can go to Schlitterbahn.
Yeah, I definitely think Schlitterbahn, the best water park in Texas.
Yes, and the one in New Braunfels certainly will always be number one, but Galveston is a pretty good one, especially that lazy river. You and I haven't been in a very long time, but even back then, the lazy river, that was no joke.
Yeah, it's like a wave pool lazy river. It was definitely fun.
There was nothing lazy about it. And of course, with that being a seasonal park, it would probably benefit you to go during the spring or summertime. And, like we were alluding to a little bit earlier, how is the traffic going to Galveston?
So that's definitely why you want to get on the island as soon as possible, because the bridge going over Galveston, if there's one accident, it can shut you down completely from getting on the island. And on Harbor Drive, which is the street that's right in front of all the cruise ports, is really busy. Between 10 and 12, it is really packed, and it's like gridlock there. So it's definitely recommended to be early. And if it's raining at that time, that street floods very, very easy. I know last episode or a couple episodes ago, we did talk about how they're going to be improving, and that's one of the improvements that they're looking at doing is improving the roads, because it doesn't matter how much it rains, those streets flood. So if you are coming to Galveston and it's raining, do not go down Harbor Drive.
Yeah, it's a shame that there's not a lot of backways into Galveston, because with it being an island, there's essentially you can go I-45 or you can go the back way and take a ferry from Crystal Beach. But that's definitely the much, much more out of the way drive, unless you just want to go on a ferry and see some dolphins. Going back to parking, what are some of the best ways to park at Galveston? Because, a lot of people, if you're not Ubering there, you got to leave your car somewhere.
Yeah, so Galveston's a little differently compared to like Miami and Port Canaveral, where they got like port parking readily available. Everyone uses that. No one uses the off-site parking that much. But Galveston, there's not a lot of parking right by the port, so there's plenty of other places though. So of course, like we talked about, Port of Galveston, they do offer that is the best option, but it's also the most expensive because you're gonna be parking in a parking garage or right next to the port, which means it's gonna cost you the most amount of money. But there's other places called port parking, which isn't affiliated with the Port of Galveston, and we also park at Easy Cruise Parking, which we've done. That is, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of shady, but it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, I believe that's the one that we did whenever your family and me and my friends went as well. I also remember parking in like a random parking garage that looked like it was owned by someone's business. So I would probably avoid that, but hey, we came back and the car was still there.
Yeah, like if you could, definitely ride with a bunch of people or Uber, because it's definitely gonna be cheaper than having to pay for parking.
So Jesse, what do you think is the best way to track what cruises are coming in and out of Galveston, how busy it is, and what are some good tips that you can find? Is there a website that they can go to look at these Galveston cruises?
Yeah, you can definitely go to the Port of Galveston, and it kind of tells you every cruise and when it's going to come out. I use an app called Cruise Legends, and that kind of lets me know every single port I go to. It lets me know like what ships are going to be there, including Galveston. So out of Galveston, Carnival's always got like Dream, Jubilee, Breeze, and then we got like Norwegian that has Prima, and then got Royal Caribbean that got Sympathies of the Sea, which I can't pronounce right. And then Icon's going to be coming next year, so that's even going to be crazy with traffic. And then of course we got MSC Seascape, and we have Disney Magic, and there's plenty others that I didn't even mention that will come randomly.
Yeah, with Galveston being one of the fastest growing cruise ports in the United States, I expect massive growth, and I expect there to be a lot of new people coming in to go cruising, because I feel like cruising has grown exponentially since COVID, and improvements to the port and the city of Galveston overall as a result. But I'll do it for this week's episode of the Lido Loop. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Our YouTube channel is the Lido Loop. And as always, I'm Jack, that's Jesse, and we will see you
on the Lido deck
or at Buc-ees.
Thank you for watching this episode of Lido Loop. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you're notified every time we post more content.